My name is Mark Collin. I'm head of retail Europe at ThoughtWorks. We're a global technology company who were co-founders of the Agile Manifesto, which many companies are now using to speed up their technology. We were authors and implementers of continuous delivery, platforms for growth and execution, and more recently, authors of The Lean Enterprise, which is, I think, the third book in Eric Ries' Lean Startup series. The Lean Enterprise talks about innovation at scale and focuses on how large enterprises can perform like startups. So it gives me great pleasure to host our first panel for the evening on mastering retail tech adoption. Barack Obama, on his recent visit to the UK and Europe, commenting on Brexit, trade deals, and his own goals for Trans-Pacific Partnership, suggested that the US valued trade partnerships east and west, but actually that the new winds of trade would blow not from regions or economies, but from a free and open internet that protects IP and innovators, which is a profound statement, but one hell of a recognition of the power of technology if adopted well. So the internet has in effect become a new economic region. So to discuss technology adoption at the next level down, and to hear about their ambitious missions, I'm delighted to welcome and introduce our very own retail, powerhouse of retail, trade and technology. So I have with me on stage today Davide Scevolin, Head of EU Analytics at eBay. Davide is bringing an Italian and international flavor, as well as an illustrious background in e-commerce and analytics. Doug Gardner, River Island CIO, as high fashion as ever, and so he should be with French Connection and now River Island under his technology belt. John Very, innovation lead at John Lewis, who I think just about has it all. Previously Burberry Digital, and now best-in-class multi-channel, Y-Room, and J-Labs at John Lewis. Jay O'Meara, Photospire co-founder, who left the high-pressure cutthroat world of investment banking for the high-pressure cutthroat world of a retail technology startup. And finally, and late to the party, but almost certainly very welcome, James Wintle, All Saints Global Technology Director, man and boy retailer, and I guess the only panelist that started in a store and is now actually running technology for the business. So welcome to our panel. By the way, I think we got the serious slot. Technology may have enabled the business, but it has liberated the consumer. And in more recent times, it has empowered the technology employee. It's actually widening some of the gaps that are already proving hard to fill in our continuous thirst for technology adoption. Lots of what we're trying to adopt is merely table stakes in customer experience terms. But if we took a thin slice through any great retailer, and as we move into the era of a modern retailer, we will find people, process, and technology together. And that's the center of our panel discussion this evening. Technology is the business is now technology. So what is it like to be a leader in such great companies dealing with complexity, uncertainty, and of course, opportunity? So let's start with technology, and let's try to consider two axes: innovate and optimize. Innovate, get ahead and stay there, using the most innovative technology to create competitive advantage. Optimize, running the business, the most important tech choices for business operations and the foundations of good retail. How do we accommodate both? So I'd like to put the first question and discussion to our multi-channel retailers and ask Doug. Doug, what technology choices do you feel have given you competitive advantage in your career and at River Island?
Well, we talk a lot today about the internet, we talk a lot about apps, we talk a lot about websites, but as a bricks and mortar retailer also that experience continues in the store. So one of the most innovative things that we're doing that also is very practical and operational is we've replaced all of our devices in the store with Android-based devices. So what this has done is it's helped us improve the operational efficiency in the store, but it's dramatically changed the role of our staff and how they interact with a customer. We've now took a lot of the back office operational functions, we've moved them to the shop floor, but we've given them digital tools. So when a customer now comes in with their device and says, do you have this in stock? And they're looking at our latest social, they're looking at everything about our brand, our staff are very well informed, they can interact with the customer. So it's really changing that dynamic. So we're pushing the technology into the hands of our staff, this technology that they're comfortable with in a digital age, and it allows them much greater interaction with the customer. Where that is a huge benefit is around customer service. They can get to information quicker, they can do mobile point of sale, they can do store order, so they can really start to interact with the customer and then start using digital tools that are available on our website and our apps to help upsell, cross-sell, and really inform and engage with the customer. So that's one of the most innovative areas, and again, it's unique to a bricks and mortar company. We have this real estate, we have all this digital technology, we're now taking the staff and we're connecting to the customer in the store.
Thanks, Doug. So I guess that, finding that balance between introducing new and innovative technology, but actually it's making a difference in the business day to day. I guess John Lewis has always been considered a best-in-class digital retailer. John, what are your thoughts on how to balance innovation and optimization?
Well, from my point of view, it's really hard to think about balance because all I really want to do is focus on innovation. That's my role. So it's really about how we can focus on a problem and really solve that problem with technology we have at our disposal. So, for example, we recently put a smart home experience into Oxford Street where you don't really see technology. It was about humanizing the whole experience and being able to contextualize what the different products meant to the customer. And we really wanted to encourage people to come and play. I heard earlier people talking about playfulness and that engagement. So for us, that part of things is really, really important.
James?
I think, if you talk about decisions and what decisions that we needed to make around the technology that ultimately powers the business and facilitates every sort of customer experience that goes on, then the biggest conversation, the biggest question, I guess, for us was about, we have an internal software team. We build all of the software that any customer or any member of staff sees across the business. And that was really the biggest kind of challenge for us was, with so many great off-the-shelf products, where does that kind of balance sit about, that kind of competitive edge and that commercial nature of what it is that we're trying to do. But ultimately, the big decision for us was, controlling every single bit of that experience, whether it's from the till in the store, from the EPOS, from the mobile apps to the websites, of warehouse management and everything that goes with it, then the big decision for us was to build all of that internally and control every single pixel of every journey 100% of the time.
It's tough. I mean, are you separating innovation internally as a kind of process and a look outside, or is it combined with the whole technology approach and thinking?
I think for us is quite similar to what John mentioned around the innovation side. And so often you hear innovation for innovation's sake, and there's so many gimmicks. And customers very rarely care about that kind of gimmicky stuff. It's in this kind of time-poor situation the customers are in, how can we just make things easy? Number one, how can we solve problems? If there's a problem that an innovation team or a kind of a hit squad can solve, then for me and for us at Allsaints, that's absolutely the nature of what it is that it's there for.
Okay, great. I guess in a room full of investors and startups, I guess it's quite demoralizing and disappointing sometimes when you look at the retail industry from the outside in, to see really that the last 20 years have been dominated by package technology, large vendors, buy versus build strategies. Are you guys changing any of your policies to allow for greater speed and differentiation?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest investments we're making is removing in the past we probably felt it was best to bespoke some of the package type systems and more of the core systems. What we're doing is we're investing heavily in middleware. We're investing heavy in technology that allows us to plug things in quicker. We're investing heavily in things like single view of customer, single view of inventory, and then creating the whole presentation layer to the customer in a much more seamless way. So there's a big shift within our retail company from the more traditional approach traditional systems of IT, pushing that towards much more the digital front, and then creating this atmosphere, this environment, everything around it to make us move in a much quicker way, because the internet is the digital world is moving so quickly. What we do know is we have to be able to adapt extremely fast, so heavy investment in that space.
Anyone else? Any comments on that?
I think it's really important, you try to encourage people. Part of your job is to come up with new ideas, but you want other people in the business to come up with ideas as well. So by doing what you do, you kind of almost create a fearless set of behaviors where people are actually encouraged to take your lead and almost say, actually, if John can do that, why can't I? It's not down to one set of people to be innovative. It should be across the business.
Okay, good. And are you finding, how are you finding it bringing business together with the technology teams? I guess, if you look at buy versus build, you'll also see a characteristic in a lot of organizations, which is the business and technology. How are you approaching that in terms of bringing what you would call the business and technology together to think about technology as a competitive advantage?
But one of the things we're trying to do is when we look at this digital transformation that we're going through, it's not just about the tech area going through a digital transformation. If we're going to apply agile principles, if we're going to move more rapidly, we have to get the business on board. So one of the things that we're investing also in is, while we're going through this digital transformation, is really working with the end user community to work with us in a very different way, to provide resource to us in a very different way, decisions in a different way. So we treat it just as importantly, and that goes to the very top of our organization. It's being pushed, it's being supported, and you won't be successful going forward unless you get the user community to change their mindset. So that's a big change for us.
Yeah. I mean, I guess at eBay, technology is the business, and you have to drive competitive advantage by being really focused on technology. It'd be great to hear from you, Davide, about what eBay is doing to continually push the boundaries and push the front edge of use of technology in your world.
I think the main challenge these days is to move away from a process in which you use the data that you get in order to drive a decision, and there's a human in the process. So a human that basically reads the data, understands a behavior, and then models whatever the future should be, whatever the action should be. Move into a world in which this happens through a machine. That's called machine learning. Is a very popular theme today. The point is, there are a lot of actions that are repetitive over time and that don't necessarily require a human to happen. And if you want to really understand your customer-centric view and do something with it, you need to be able to personalize to the single person, not to personas like it used to be in the past. And to do that, you need algorithms. And that changes completely the way the company approaches the process, because you don't own the relationship with the customer anymore. You own the relationship with the algorithms that do own the relationship with the customer. And that requires a completely different set of people, different culture in the company, and different processes to make this happen and work and not get out of hand.
So I guess as head of EU Analytics, would you say that eBay is already a data-driven or a data-guided business in that sense then?
Well, we have the privilege of being 20 years old, that's it. So we have no older legacy way of doing things. We have data at the center of decision-making from day one. And so our organization is shaped in a way in which whenever someone in the business, whether it's operation, category management, even HR, whenever they have to make a decision, there is always an analytics counterpart that makes sure that whatever they do has a predefined set of expectations, a model that models what the behavior should be, what the result should be. And then we also help them in understanding what happens when the action actually kicks off. And then it's never as expected, as always. But the point of analytics there is to help learning, right? And so develop the collective knowledge that everyone needs to make sure that a mistake is never made again in the same way, but we actually can improve over time, understanding where in the funnel we made the wrong assumption and how can we make it better over time.
And I guess in a pure play online business, it is easier to drive new products and new experiences with analytics, because you've got essentially one platform or one online environment to gather all of this analytics from. I guess much harder when you look at stores, interactions in changing rooms and people coming in and out of bricks and mortar environments. I think, just looking in the environment over there, there's some great technologies that seem to help retailers understand better what is going on in the store and use technology to gather analytics about the physical environment, which is much more difficult for the bricks and mortar guys. So just kind of leaning towards the emphasis on competitive advantage. I know when we worked with the Gap the last couple of years, we built some algorithms around price markdown optimization. We built some technology to improve anticipatory shipping so we could put inventory nearer to where it needed to be. They actually went ahead and patented the technology. So they saw it as such a competitive advantage that they actually went ahead and went through the patent process. Are any of you looking at technology as such an important asset or attribute that you are going to those kind of lengths to protect it?
I think for us it's it's a relatively unique situation that we're in the way that we pretty much build everything. But I think for us it's very important not to lose sight of the human element of what it is that we do. We're a true vertical retailer in every sense of the word, in that absolutely everything that you see when you walk into the stores is built and manufactured by us. Obviously all the products are designed and manufactured in-house, and I think for us the technology is always a support of that, and it's critical for us not to lose sight of that, because if you ask any of my software developers, we're a development house that happens to sell clothes, but actually the brand is and that kind of customer interaction is still the single most important thing. And I think we try very hard to make sure that the technology doesn't interfere with that, because it can become overbearing, and so with that in mind, it's super important that we don't lose focus on the importance of what we're doing.
Sure. So that's incremental innovation in a kind of vertical or linear business model. I did want to ask, we're seeing a lot of new business model innovation through use of technology. So organizations looking at the assets that they have today to drive out and create entirely new businesses from the same assets. If you look at a company like Zalando, who really are not a retailer, they're an inventory as a service model. They're doing some really, really interesting stuff in creating left turns and right turns from what is essentially a retailer online platform. John, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing with the connected home, because I guess that is a departure from running a department store and being a good online retailer to actually thinking about how to capture the customer in the home through technology. It would be great to hear some more about that.
Yeah. So, John Lewis, we sell furniture, we sell technology. So, from that point of view, it was a really simple decision to make. But, the smart home concept is a really complex situation. No one really understands what it actually means. It could mean so many different things. So I think from our point of view, it was really important to have a point of view in that space and to curate an experience that in store, could compel people to come into the store to learn more, but also take them through the different products in terms of contextualizing what it could look like in their home. So taking a Nest out of a box, putting it on a wall next to a window that actually had a screen behind it, creating content that showed different weather that was actually triggering the Nest. Building that in-house, and actually understanding, learning, how can we build that further out, in terms of the future. At the moment, in that smart home space, there's a number of different apps to control, but what does the future look like with artificial intelligence, with one app to control everything? So, it creates that expression where you can actually express your innovation capabilities.
Thanks, John. So we've touched upon technology for competitive advantage and technology to run the business. Technology, people, process. Let's just explore a little bit the processes that these guys are using. With so many options coming at us both in quantity and speed, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality, machine learning, deep learning, commerce, payment options, consumer tech, quantified self, social. Wow. What processes are you guys using to evaluate, consider new technology, experiment, test, and implement? I'd like to give this one to Davide to start with, again from the perspective of an online retail business.
So processes, I do analytics, so the processes part I care about is how to make sure my team is relevant to the business, right? So analytics in every company is just a cost. It's very difficult to understand it as a revenue generator, so we are understaffed by definition. And so what happens is the most critical part of what we do is I would say, prioritization. And I always say the great analyst is not the one with all the answers, but the one with the right questions, because with the data that we have, we can answer every question you want. But the thing is, we need to choose the ones that make an impact to the business. So prioritization is key, the capacity of really understanding and having a process that makes sure that you don't deploy resources into something that either it's useless or you can't act upon. It's not a wise investment of time. And the second part, I would say, is communication, because a great analyst tends to be a very technical person, capable of understanding, how to get the data and how to do models and all that. But then the context of the problem that is trying to solve requires this person to interact with the person that owns the problem and then empower this person to make the right decisions. This is not a service that you can do without a human element, a human component to it. So making sure that whatever you find out, there is a constant communication with the business. Even if you find nothing, the point of view of the business owner, the problem owner, can actually make you make a better analysis, make you find something that you couldn't think about yourself. So these two things, which usually are underestimated, because when you think about analytics and processes, you talk about tools, you talk about Scrum, you talk about Agile, that stuff, I take it for granted. But the two things, in my experience, that really make the difference and make an analytics team work are prioritization and communication.
So prioritization, and I guess, again, you've got the advantage of having that kind of wealth of analytics to be able to prioritize more easily. It gets more complex as we move into stores and multi-channel and more proliferated inventory models. And I know, James, you have a strong in-source approach at All Saints. So yeah, talk to us about some of the processes that you're using to innovate and incorporate and deliver technology well.
Sure, and I think again, to kind of reiterate, it really comes around solving a problem that exists. And I think, to give you a bit of a real world example of something that we've done recently is, how do we join online and offline stock inventories? How do we, make that inventory work harder across multiple locations around the world? And, for us, the process there was about, understanding the problem, understanding the opportunity, but also, going through that process of understanding, building something like that internally is no small task, but actually going through the process of understanding what else is on the market. And actually, because the teams are so ingrained within the business, and rather than having, a kind of dusty basement full of developers that just kind of, get on with the stuff that the rest of the business asks them for. Actually, we create hit squads and we put processes in that means that, my core developers are sitting with the merchants and with the retail teams and with the customer experience team, meaning that, they're all part of the same team, so they can see problems firsthand. And I think, for us, that's a more important process, is to, have the guys that are building it and, fixing problems and also innovating within the rest of the team rather than segmented into the rest of the business. And, the single view of stock project that we've just completed, because of that, took us something like 4 months, all internally built from start to finish, which means that, that back to the kind of competitive edge, it means we can move much quicker because all the processes are kind of built in and ingrained into what the teams are doing.
Which is really fast. I mean, 4 months to go through the process of creating unified inventory is super fast, super impressive. And I guess, like Davide was saying, if you put the doers, the analysts, the developers with the merchandisers and the business in cross-functional teams, you just tend to get there faster, right? I guess it would be, in talking about process of innovation and incubation, it would be remiss not to hear from John Lewis on JLabs and Y-Room. So this is the evolution of JLabs. Is that right, John?
Yeah. So we have internal and external. So internal, we have a place called Room Y, which is a studio, a workshop, which is in the basement of our office in Victoria, where it's all about no process. It's about identifying a problem that could be today or 5 years down the line and really building something from scratch and getting that in front of people in the business in a tangible way. Not through a PowerPoint or a keynote and saying, this is what we plan to do. Actually show someone and let them engage with it. And the ambition each time is to get that in store in front of customers. You know, it's not scalable. Why it shouldn't need to be scalable from our point of view. You know, that's someone else in the business, and then we work with them. So us, it's about getting in front of people, learning from it, and then rolling it out further if not necessary. In terms of JLab, you know, that's our accelerator. We're in our third year, where we're, again, you know, we don't have the full monopoly on ideas. So how can we immerse ourselves in a space where not only can we hear about these ideas, but we can actually invite people in and help educate in terms of what a business like John Lewis is looking for.
And that's your open environment for startups to come and work with John Lewis. So the wine room is really interesting. I mean, if you think about like frugal innovation, put 3 people in a room with no money and no process, they'll figure things out and they'll come up with things a lot faster. So it's really interesting to hear you know, as a large retailer talking about just throwing people in a room to solve a problem and come up with a product or an idea.
It's all about experimentation.
Yeah.
You know, you can talk about innovation all day long, but if you don't actually, you know, get your hands on something and try to make something, you don't learn. You know, that's why I think keeping it in-house for us at that point, it's about what can we learn from that part of the process, you know, in terms of if you outsource that, you lose a whole big chunk of what you could learn because they'll come back with a solution. They won't tell you about everything to get to that solution. You know, that's not right for every project, but for that, I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I guess there's a definite trend back towards insourcing, building capability inside the business. I mean, retailers have suffered significantly by, you know, heavily outsourcing IT and technology, moving it over to India or, you know, other distributed locations. And actually with that, they're outsourcing their innovation capability. So it's just great to hear a set of retailers who are actually bringing that really aggressively back in-house. So we've heard from the big retailers on how they work with startups and smaller companies to trial innovation. Jay, what is it like being in this industry as a startup and trying to get noticed by these guys? What techniques and processes are you using to do that? But also, you know, at the same time, keep evolving a great product.
Thanks, Mark. I think, you know, when myself and Dave started out at Photospire about 2 years ago, we poured everything into the product at the start. It was all about building the product. We spent 6 months coding, debugging, retesting, redesigning. And at the end of the 6 months, we put our heads up and we looked at each other and we said, that's the hard work done. You know, we have a product. Let's go to market. And how wrong we were. A raw product, it just isn't good enough when you're dealing with enterprise clients, and that's something we learned really quickly. They didn't know who we were. We had no track record. There's so much noise out there and there's so many startups making big promises that there's absolutely no way to get through that noise and get to the people you need to talk to. So we knew we had to do something. We had to do something quickly. And we started off with, the first thing we did was run as many trials as you can. You need validation of your product. You need stats to back up the promises. And we trialed it with some really small retailers to start with, and gradually we started building up those case studies that gave us, you know, something to take to the retailer. The second thing was we got a lot better at our demos. We came up with much slicker demos that were really tailored for individual retailers, so that when they looked at our product, all of a sudden they could look at it and understand this is exactly how it works for me. And the third thing we did was we joined an accelerator. We joined TrueStart. And that's probably the one that has moved us on quicker than anything else. Because essentially, when we started having conversations with retailers after we'd been through TrueStart, all of a sudden they were looking at us and they realized these guys have been through another 6 months of vetting and validation by industry experts, by mentors and advisors, and all of a sudden they're looking at us and we have that, not a raw product, fully validated product and team, and we have what's the start of a micro brand, and Photospire has become this kind of micro brand that they're willing to have a conversation with.
Yeah, I think both of the opening speakers touched upon, you know, how many great products sit in a basement or a cupboard because they just can't get to market. So it sounds like you've got some momentum now, and you've figured out, you know, how to get the product to market. Sounds like you could do to spend some time in John's Y room.
I've had plenty of conversations with John. There'll be a few more.
So just closing out then, we've touched on technology for competitive advantage, run the business. We've looked at some of the processes that help large retailers act like startups, and heard from Jer on what it's like to be a startup. So we're going to close up on the people. that there is a war for talent. Harnessing any of these technologies requires great skills, and we're in a burgeoning market where the technology employee holds more of the cards. So I'd really like to hear from you guys on what steps are you taking to attract and retain the best people, because we're all fighting for the same people. Again, I'd just like to start with Doug, because I know you're doing some interesting stuff, and ask you what kind of things are you doing, and how important is location in being able to achieve the insourcing and building the capability that you need to.
Yeah. But it is a competitive market, so you have to stand out. You have to do everything you can in terms of changing the work environment, the processes. You also have to have very interesting things for people to work on. You have to have a very creative environment where they can contribute. Location is very important. We've just opened up our Shoreditch offices. We're finding it very difficult to recruit out in Hanger Lane in a competitive market. If you're not in the center, if you're not in a really good location, providing really interesting projects, working in a very different way, really addressing how people want to work today, you're going to lose out to the other people. It's not just a minor gap that we have right now. It's a huge gap to try and get talent. So it's incredibly competitive. We have to, as a company, invest and chase that, because it's what you have to do to attract people.
Good luck with that. I mean, I guess it's going to be, it could be a double-edged sword. I mean, Shoreditch is Tech City. It's the home of lots of startups and cool technology companies. So it's going to be an interesting time for you in Shoreditch. James,
Yeah,
how are you attracting people into also?
And honestly, this is the biggest challenge. The technology is easy in comparison. So, the single biggest thing is, outside looking in, we're a fashion retailer. You wouldn't necessarily look there as, a member of the tech community to say, oh, these guys are doing really good things. So, to echo kind of Doug's point, we try and offer interesting problems to solve, and also hire good colleagues for anyone joining the team. And ultimately for us, it's about telling the story about what we do, of which we're right at the start of the journey of. So more to come.
Yeah, and opening up to the community. I mean, are your offices open to local community, local technology meetups, and those kind of things that put you on the map and attract attention in those communities in London?
Sure, we do. We do a reasonable amount in and around startup communities and various different partners, and anything around the idea sharing and the space sharing, considering we're kind of just down the street, is something we're starting to do a lot more of.
Thank you. So we've covered technology, people, and process, and I guess some of the opportunities and challenges that are faced by large retailers and startups as they consider just a wide range of technologies that they could adopt to take their businesses forward. In summary, I think we've an open invite for startups to come and meet these guys, and in just 20 minutes we've heard a wide range of approaches from our panel, showing that confident adoption of technology can have a huge impact on customer experience, valuation, and profits. But as well as the leaders and also the disruptors and startups, we're also seeing that technology can create new dawns for old businesses too. Speaking from first-hand experience of working with Auto Trader across 3 horizons, so from offline to online, from agile online to digital and mobile, and now being a data-driven business, they recently achieved the highest UK stock market flotation in 2015 at £2.5 billion, and that's for a company that used to produce car magazines. And equally, Domino's Pizza Enterprises, whose stock has soared since embracing technology to open stores faster, create an automated online ordering platform. But actually in the innovation space, last year they increased their net profits by around 42% through their digital social loyalty program, Pizza Mogul. Pizza Mogul gets customers to sell profitable pizza at scale, but it rewards them in the process. So I think they've proven that in getting tech adoption right, optimizing and innovating, it can have a significant impact. But choosing the right technology is only one part of the puzzle. I'd like to thank our panel, Davide, Doug, John, Jer, and James, for their openness and their advice today. I'm not sure whether we do have time for questions, but I'd like to thank you for your time and attendance today.